Hello students, today we will start the class on transmission control protocol. So far we had looked into the user datagram protocol, which uses a connectionless feature wherein there is no explicit connection required before the data transfer, and the datagrams are transmitted independent of one another. Even though UDP is a lightweight protocol, not every time it would suit certain applications which require reliability, because UDP is unreliable. So hence we next look at a reliable protocol which uses a connection oriented mechanism called as the transmission control protocol. So this transmission control protocol, or in short TCP, is a connection oriented reliable protocol. So what we mean by connection orientedness here? So when we say that TCP is connection oriented, before any data transfer there should be a separate connection establishment phase, during which both the sender and receiver agree upon certain parameters like the resources being required. Example of a resource could be a bandwidth and such. So once these parameters are negotiated and the connection is established, it is followed by a data transfer phase, and after the data is transferred, we have a connection teardown phase, wherein the connection is terminated either by the sender or the receiver. And we also said that TCP is a reliable protocol. So to ensure reliability, TCP uses the concept of a checksum, to determine whether packets have been corrupted during transit. And also it is not only that packets will be lost or corrupted during transmission, it is quite possible that packets could be lost also due to various network outages like congestion or such. In case of lost or corrupted packets, so the TCP protocol asks for retransmission of such packets, and to ensure that no packets are lost, it uses a mechanism of either a cumulative acknowledgement or selective acknowledgements that we will see slightly later. So in simple words, acknowledgement is nothing but informing the sender that I have received a particular data, and also to have proper synchronization. These also use the concept of timers. This TCP is one of the most common transport layer protocol now being used in the internet. So first let's look at the services being offered. So the TCP is supposed to offer the following services as listed in the slide. First, it is supposed to provide a process-to-process communication. Then it provides a stream delivery service, and again this communication will be in full duplex mode. It has to provide multiplexing and demultiplexing. Then it should provide a connection-oriented service, and also a reliable service where no packets are corrupted or lost. So let us look at each of these services. So first, looking at process to process communication, this service is nothing new. It is same as was in the case of UDP. The transport layer is supposed to cater to the upper layer called as the application layer, where there are two communicating processes that are involved. So TCP sets up a logical connection, as we have learnt in case of UDP. It provides a logical connection which enables process to process communication. Remember, we discussed this in UDP and prior to UDP as to how this communication is achieved by the concept of port numbers, either using well-defined port numbers or ephemeral port numbers that are agreed by both parties. The second kind of a service that the TCP is supposed to provide is a stream delivery service. Okay, so this is where TCP differs from UDP. In case of UDP, it generates a bursty traffic. Okay, so the data is sent in forms of packets at uneven intervals and it is not a continuous flow. Whereas in case of TCP, it is a stream oriented protocol and the data flow is continuous. So it allows the sending process to deliver data as a stream of bytes and allows the receiving process to obtain as a stream of bytes. Okay, as you can see in the diagram here, this process is actually transparent to both the sending and receiving process. For them, a visualization is created, or they start thinking that there is an imaginary connection, a direct connection between the sending TCP and the receiving TCP, okay, which we also refer to as an imaginary tube, through which bytes are pumped across the internet. That's why we say that TCP is a stream oriented protocol. Okay, the data transfer is actually happening from one application to another application as a series of bytes, stream of bytes, and therefore it's called a stream delivery service. And to ensure that both the sending process and the receiving process do not lose up on any data, the TCP is equipped with temporary memory, which we call as buffers. Okay, so TCP needs buffers for storing these stream of bytes, and we have two kinds of buffers, namely the send buffer and the receiving buffer. So if we dig deep and try to understand the structure of the buffers, okay, you can see the structure of the buffers as shown in the diagram here. So we have the sending process on the left hand side and the receiving process on the right hand side, which are connected by an imaginary TCP connection. We have a sending TCP and a receiving TCP. So here, why do we require buffers in the first place? This is because the speed at which the two processes might be writing and reading data into this TCP may not be the same. Okay, so there could be a very fast sender and a slow receiver. Okay, so if the slow receiver is not equipped with buffers, then the data sent by the sending process might be lost at the receiver. So there are two buffers as we have shown earlier in the diagram. Okay, so and if you look at the diagram, these buffers are not linear buffers, rather they are circular buffers. Okay, the reason they are circular is that they are repeatedly reused, and at the sender, the buffer, we call it as a send buffer, and this buffer has three types of chambers. If we can, if we again go back to the diagram here, the white colored chambers, okay, the buffers are divided into chambers. Okay, probably each one of it can include one unit of data that we later discuss as segments. So the white colored chambers in the diagram that you see are the empty chambers, okay, where data can be written into, and the next buffer, okay, there are two kind of colored buffers. Okay, so the blue colored buffers are the buffers that have been already written into this TCP channel that we see in between. But now comes the question as to why is it, if it is already returned to the channel, why is it still placed in the buffer? So these bytes have been returned to the TCP channel, but they have not been acknowledged so far. Okay, so in TCP, one of the major feature is reliability. So when a receiver receives a data, it is its job to acknowledge it, saying that it has to inform the sender saying that I have received this data. So this process of sending back an acknowledgement may take some time until an acknowledgement arrives. Okay, a data that is still written into the TCP channel is still maintained within the send buffer. Okay, the blue colored chambers indicate that. Then the black colored buffer is the data that has been written by the sending process. Okay, the sending process has written to the TCP buffer or the send buffer, and it is yet to be written onto the channel. Okay, so when can this happen? This can happen when there is a sending process that is writing data at a very faster rate. Okay, much faster than the bandwidth of this communication channel here. In such a case, okay, so that the data is not lost, the application writes to the buffer, and then the TCP on the sender side reads one byte at a time or one segment at a time and writes it to the TCP channel. So those bytes that are yet to be returned to the communication channel are shown in the black color. Okay, they are yet to be sent. They are not being put on the channel. So if you look here, okay, why do we use a circular buffer is, suppose consider this blue colored chambers, which are the bytes that have been written to the communication channel. Okay, and they have been they are waiting to be acknowledged. So once an acknowledgement arrives for a particular segment or a byte of data, then it will be removed. Okay, so this part can be used later at a later time to be used to write another new piece of data. Okay, and this proceeds in a circular fashion. Okay, so you can see that there is a pointer that points to the next available location where the next byte can be written. Okay, that is over here, and once data is written, it becomes a black chamber, and then once it is written onto the communication, it becomes into the blue color, and once it is acknowledged, that byte will be removed, and so on. Okay, so if clearly we have three types of sections within the send buffer. Let me repeat again. The white section contains the empty chambers that can be filled by the sending process, and then the blue color are the bytes that have been sent but still not yet acknowledged, and the black colored bytes are the bytes that have been written to the buffer but they have not been put on the communication channel yet. Similarly, on the receiving side, we have a receive buffer, again which is a circular buffer. So here we have only two kinds of chambers. We have an empty chamber, and we have a colored or shaded chambers. So the empty chambers indicate the empty chambers where any new data that has been received through the communication channel is going to be placed, and it is not always that once a data arrives at the receiving TCP, it can be immediately consumed by the receiving process. Okay, it could be that the receiving process might be a bit slower. Okay, the rate at which it is reading data from the TCP buffer might be slower than the rate at which the data is being written into this receive buffer. So again, to prevent any loss of data, we use the receive buffer. So the white colored sections are the bytes where newer data can be written into. Once data is written into, it will be shown in blue. Okay, and once this data is being read by the receiving process, okay, then it can be emptied upon, it can be removed, and that's why this buffer also behaves in a circular fashion. So that's about the sending and receiving process. Then we said that TCP is a stream oriented protocol, but however the TCP needs to send data in the form of packets, so this could be a bit confusing. Okay, so pay attention here. So the process, the sending and the receiving process will have a transparent view that there is an imaginary logical channel in which the sending process is writing a continuous stream of bytes, and the receiving process is also receiving this as a continuous stream of bytes. But in actual practice, okay, if we look at the TCP IP model, the job of delivering the data is not of the transport layer. Okay, it is actually the network layer which has the routing functions. And if you remember, the network layer makes use of the IP protocol, which is again a connectionless protocol, which requires that data be sent in the form of packets. So the TCP which works at the transport layer cannot send the data in the form of the stream to the underlying network layer. The underlying network layer wants the data in the form of packets. So to achieve this, at the transport layer, the TCP groups several number of bytes together into a data unit. Here, when we are talking about TCP, a unit of data, we refer to it as a segment, as opposed to UDP, where we called a unit of data as a user datagram. Okay, so whenever we are talking about TCPs, units of data are here on going to be represented as or called as segments. So when a application layer hands over data to the transport layer, the transport layer breaks them into segment. Okay, and for each of this data, the TCP will add a header to it and deliver the segment to the network layer for transmission. Okay, if you look at the diagram here, okay, so in between the sending TCP and the receiving TCP, you can see that when the segments are being sent, okay, so the payload part, the white shaded part here, is the data part that has been delivered by the application. So this acts as the payload, and to this payload the TCP attaches its own header, which is shown in, and this data along with this header, we refer to it as a segment in TCP. Like this, it creates a continuous sequence of segments and keeps writing it to the receiving TCP. Okay, so a thing that you have to understand here is that units of data in TCP are treated as segments. Now we will come to the other features of TCP. Next, after understanding the windowing mechanisms, we had send window and the buffer receiving window, or the send buffer and the receiving buffers. Next, TCP is supposed to offer full duplex communication. Okay, so we know that there could be three types of communication. Okay, simplex, half duplex and full duplex. In simplex there is only one way communication. In half duplex, communication can be in both directions, but only one entity can use at any point in time. Whereas in full duplex communication, both the communicating parties can perform data transmission in either direction. And TCP, being a reliable service, offers full duplex service. Here each TCP endpoint has its own sending and receiving buffer, and the segments move in both the directions. Okay, so in the earlier diagram we had seen that there are two buffers. For example, the sending process has a send buffer and the receiving process has a receiving buffer. But because of the two-way communication, sometimes it is not just that a client sends a request to the server. The server will also send a communication in the reverse direction, which is a response, in which case now the server on the right hand side will act as the sender and the client on the left hand side will act as a receiver. And that's why we require full duplex communication. And in the opposite direction also we will have two more buffers. Okay, a send buffer on the server side and the receiving buffer on the client side. So hence TCP is said to offer a full duplex communication. Then we have multiplexing and demultiplexing. So this is again common to other protocols as well. So TCP performs multiplexing at the sender and demultiplexing at the receiver. You know that at the application layer there are several protocols. Okay, there are multiple protocols like FTP or a mail transfer protocol, or several such application protocols, HTTP and so on. And so when at the sender, the data received by several such application layer protocols should be multiplexed. And similarly, at the receiving side, it has to be demultiplexed back. Okay, the data should be converted into an appropriate protocol, appropriate application protocol. So this is what we mean by multiplexing at the sender and demultiplexing at the receiver. Then the next kind of a service offered by TCP is a connection oriented service. Okay, hence TCP is called as a connection oriented protocol, where we have a three-phase transfer. Initially we have a connection establishment phase, followed by the data transfer phase, followed by a connection termination phase. And as shown earlier in one of the diagrams, this connection is purely logical. Okay, you should not imagine that there will be a physical channel set up between the sender and the receiver. This connection is purely logical in nature. And the next service is that it provides for reliable transfer. So TCP is a reliable transfer protocol. What do we mean by reliability? Every data that has been sent, it is guaranteed that it will be delivered to the receiver. Okay, so to achieve reliability, the TCP, as discussed earlier, uses a mechanism called as an acknowledgement mechanism to check the safe and sound arrival of data. Okay, and another thing that you have to understand here is, since TCP uses the underlying layer IP, which provides an unreliable transfer, apart from acknowledgements, okay, the job of the TCP is that it has to check the integrity. It has to check whether the data is corrupted or not, okay, or if some packets have been lost or not, okay. And in both the cases it will ask for retransmission. This is where we are guaranteeing that the data sent is actually going to be delivered to the receiver. If it is lost in transit, we are going to again ask for retransmission. So by using all these mechanisms together, the acknowledgement mechanism, retransmission, and another thing, it should also, TCP should also be able to reorder the packets. Okay, it should rearrange the packets again in the same order as it was sent by the receiver. By ensuring all these three, we are going to achieve reliable transfer. Now let's look into certain features of the TCP. They are, first one is the numbering system. So the TCP software needs to keep track of the segments. Why does it need to keep track of the segments? To enable or to ensure that they are indeed delivered to the receiver. Okay, that's why they have to keep track of the segments. So to achieve this, okay, they require two special numbers. They are called as the sequence number and the acknowledgement number. These two fields refer to a byte number and not a segment number. Okay, again, clearly understand this. Okay, so whenever we specify the sequence number or the acknowledgement number, it is not going to identify the segment number, rather it identifies a byte number. And so now let's try to understand what we mean by this byte number. Okay, so when the TCP wants to send some particular data, it is going to assign special numbers called as sequence numbers and so on. So this numbering, okay, always need not necessarily start from 0. Usually what we do is we pick a number at random, okay, an arbitrary number which is in the range 0 to, okay, there is a typo here, it's 2 power 32 minus 1. So whenever I want to start with transferring some particular part of data, for the first byte I choose an arbitrary number, okay, and this number is not 0, it could be something like 1500 or something like that. Okay, say suppose, let's say that this arbitrary number that I chose is 1057 and the amount of data that I have to be sent is, let's say, 6000 bytes. Then the bytes are going to be numbered not from 0 to 6000, but rather they will be numbered from 1057 to 7056. The first byte will have the number as 1057 and the last byte, which is 6000 bytes after it, will have a byte number 7056. So what we have to understand here is the numbering system used in TCP will refer to the byte number, not a segment number, and these byte numbers need not necessarily start from 0. Rather, they are an arbitrary number between 0 and 2 power 32 minus 1. So what are the different types of byte numbers that we are going to use? First one is the sequence number. So TCP assigns a sequence number to each segment that is being sent. Okay, so TCP has to keep track of every segment that it is going to send. So for this it requires some kind of an identification mechanism. So each such segment will be given a sequence number, and the sequence number of the first segment is called as the initial sequence number. Okay, or in short we call it as an ISN as well, and as discussed earlier, it is a random number, okay, in the range 0 to 2 power 32. And the sequence number of any other segment is the sequence number of the previous segment plus the number of bytes. Okay, so you have to understand here, suppose say the sequence number chosen is 1400. Okay, and the size of the segment is, let's say, 1000 bytes. So if the sequence number of the first segment is 1400, the sequence number of the second segment will be 1500. Okay, so you have to understand here sequence number of any other segment is the sequence number of the previous segment plus the number of bytes. So if I take the second segment, it will be the sequence number of the first segment plus the number of bytes. So 1400 plus 100 gives you 1500, which is the sequence number of the second segment. Similarly, 1500 plus 1000 gives you the sequence number of the third segment, and so on. Okay, so let's look at an example. Suppose there is a TCP connection which is transferring a file of 5000 bytes. The first byte is numbered 10001. What are the sequence numbers for each segment if data are sent in 5 segments, each carrying 1000 bytes? So now let's try to understand this question. So here the TCP connection is transferring a file. So here let's say the FTP protocol at the application layer is supposed to send a file which is of 5000 bytes size. So this file is sent to the TCP, and the first byte number or the initial sequence number is chosen to be 10001. This file, which is of 5000 bytes, is supposed to be sent as 5 segments, each carrying 1000 bytes. So in this case, the first segment will have a sequence number of 10001. Okay, how did we come with 10001? This was just a random number chosen between the range 0 to 2 power 32. And what is the range of this segment, or the range of byte numbers for this segment? It can be 10001 up to 11,000. Okay, the 1000 bytes that are part of the first segment. The second segment's sequence number, remember our earlier definition, the sequence number of any segment is the sequence number of the previous segment plus the size of the segment. So 10001 plus 1000 gives us 11001, which is the sequence number of segment 2. Similarly, segment 3 has a sequence number 12001 because it is 11001 plus 1000, and so on. So segment 3 has a sequence number of 12001. Segment 4 has a sequence number of 13001. Segment 5 has a sequence number of 14001. So you should also understand that the sequence numbers do not indicate the size of the segment. Okay, rather it just indicates some numbering scheme. Okay, so each segment here is 1000 bytes long, even though their sequence numbers are in the range 10,000 and above. Their size is only 1000 bytes. Okay. The next kind of a number that we are going to use is the acknowledgement number. Okay. So this acknowledgement number is usually used by the receiver. So when a sender sends a particular segment of data, the receiver in the opposite, after receiving this particular segment, should send a acknowledgement saying that yes, I have received. So to indicate this, we use another kind of a special number called as the acknowledgement number. And how do we choose upon this acknowledgement number? The value of the acknowledgement field in a segment defines the number of the next byte a party expects to receive. Okay, and this acknowledgement number could be sometimes cumulative also. Okay, so let's try to understand what's the meaning of this. Okay, so let's say that the acknowledgement number sent is 10,001. So it means that it has so far received the bytes up to 10,000. Okay, and 10,001 when the sender receives an acknowledgement seeing the value 10,001, sender gets to know that yes, my transfer up till 10,000 has been successful, and the receiver is now expecting from the next byte 10,001 onwards. Okay, the acknowledgement number here is sometimes cumulative also. Okay, we can see an example slightly later when we discuss the scenario. So it is not always that for every segment that we send there could be a acknowledgement in the other side. Suppose say I am sending 5 segments, it is quite possible that I can receive 5 acknowledgements also in the reverse direction, or sometimes it could be that the acknowledgement numbers could be cumulative as well. For example, the receiver may choose to send an acknowledgement for every 2 segments rather than every single segment. Okay, so in such case, suppose say I have sent 2 segments, one from 10,001 to 11,000 and another one from 11,000 to 12,001. So there are 2 scenarios wherein in the first scenario you can receive 2 acknowledgements, one after the first segment and another after the second segment. So the first acknowledgement will have the value 11,001 saying that I am expecting the next byte is 11,001, and again it will send another acknowledgement after the second segment 12,001 saying that I am expecting the next byte. Or there could be a single acknowledgement from the receiver whose value is 12,001 saying that I have received till 12,000, I am expecting now 12,001. Okay, so this is what we mean by an acknowledgement number being cumulative. Okay.